Hey guys, this is Goku, and today we're going to be talking about continuation bets. You will learn why they're a great tool and why you should use them in your game. You will also learn what factors you should consider when making Seabeds, and lastly we'll talk about why it's sometimes a good idea to make a delayed Seabed on the turn. So, let's get right into it. Continuation bet, or Seabed, is the most basic sort of a bluff. It is really a standard play nowadays, so I highly recommend you use it. A Seabed happens when you've raised pre-flop, you've missed the flop, and you're first to act, or the other players have checked to you. In this spot, you lead out with a continuation bet to try and continue to tell the story that your hand is strong. Seabeds have a high chance of success because when your opponent also missed the flop, it's hard for him to call as your story is consistent, you show strength pre-flop and now you continue on the flop. When you make a continuation bet, you should keep in mind a few things. It's best to Seabed heads up when you're only up against one opponent. You might try to make a continuation bet against two opponents occasionally, but best try not to. And if there's 3 or more players, don't even think about it. The sizing is important as well. If you make your Seabed 50% of the pot, you only have to win 1 out of 3 times to break even, whilst if you make it 75% of the pot, you now have to win about 43% of the time to break even. So it's really better to make your continuation bet smaller, ideally close to half pot bets, but you should mix it up and sometimes bet more to keep your opponents guessing. Also, you should pay attention to the structure of the flop and the hand you're holding. If, for example, you have a draw and are last to act, you should probably check most of the time, especially if your opponent is an aggressive player. On the other hand, if you miss the flop completely, you should always Seabed, as it's your only chance of winning the pot. Another situation would be if the board is wet, meaning it's got lots of possible draws or a couple of high cards. You don't want to often Seabed such board, because the probability that your opponent has connected with it somehow is too high for your continuation bet to be profitable. Delayed Seabed is when you didn't make the continuation bet on the flop and the action is checked to you on the turn. Or your opponent checked in position on the flop and you're first to act on the turn. This is even a better opportunity to take the pot down, as your opponent's range is now very likely to be weak and your delayed Seabed will win the hand most of the time, and when your opponent just calls your bet, you'll often be able to win the pot with a second barrel on the river if a safe card comes. Okay, so we've talked about continuation bets, and now you know that almost every time when you raise pre-flop and miss the flop, you should make the continuation bet. Depending on the structure of the board, your hand, and the knowledge you have about your opponent, you should make it from 1 to 3/4 of the pot. Obviously, the smaller the better, but you have to make sure your continuation bet does the job, which is to get a fold. Also, you want to make sure your opponents cannot tell from your betting that you are value betting because you hit your hand or you are just C-betting because you missed. The best spots for C-bets are dry boards against tight players. In general, when you missed, you should C-bet most of the time. When you hit a draw, depending on its strength, whether you have position or not, you may sometimes C-bet, you may sometimes play check call, or you can sometimes check behind to get a free card on the turn. If the board is wet and your opponent is a loose aggressive player, then you're better off just checking and giving up on the hand. Thank you so much for watching, and congratulations! You are now one step closer to becoming an awesome poker player. If you enjoyed this lesson, please share it with your friends, click the like button and subscribe for more future videos. You should know that it is very important that you put the knowledge you have acquired into practice. This course will teach you all you need to know in order to beat the small stakes games, but you gotta practice. You have to get comfortable playing poker. You have to learn these fundamentals by heart. I cannot stress this enough. You will only get better if you practice. Even 15 minutes a day will do wonders for your game in the long term. So, have fun playing, and I wish you all good luck. See you in the next lesson.